What's up, Fins fan? My name is Jim Greasehaber. Call me Grease, and I just can't defend football guys who talk like Tua Tagovailoa and Mike McDaniel did this week.
Hey, I'm Jeff Scanina, and I'm never late for a meeting.
I'm Kyle Krabs, and I would love to have no players-only meetings, but we're having one here on Locked On Dolphins Squad.
Oh, man, Z.
Fins up. It's the Dolphin Squad. Everything Miami Dolphins, every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from South Beach. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Sunshine, speed, and squad goals. The Dolphin Squad Show starts now.
I'm still laughing, Z. That's the best open we've had in the show so far. I'm Jim Greasehaber. Call me Grease. That's Kyle Krabs. All the way to your right, he is Mr. Dolphin, and he is the one who built this channel, so we all owe him some gratitude. And then we got Jeff Scanina, the Z-Man in the middle, who was never late to a meeting, even when his quarterback called it and complained and whined after. So, Z, I'm just going to get right to it with you. We had some fun in the text between the three of us, but I've been the guy getting ripped in the chat for defending Tua. And Kyle even said Tua was not in the top 5 on the list of problems until the post-game press conference when he put himself number 1 at the top of the list of the problems, supposed to be the leader of the team. And all I heard from that, as I had time to process this week, is I called a team meeting and nobody showed up. And that's what it sounded like to me the more I looked at it. And so it seemed to me like not only does he sound like whining and crying, obviously is what he's looking to do right now and pass the buck, but more importantly, that's a quarterback who doesn't have the respect of his teammates, man, if you read between the lines, or his coach maybe anymore after what you saw Mike said. So I'm just going to set it up and throw it to you, bro. You're a guy who's in a ton of locker rooms for almost 30 years. What in the hell is going on with these two guys, with Tua and Mike?
It's hard to say what's going on because now the finger pointing is starting, it seems like. And I don't, again, what kind of player meeting was it? Because there's like a lot of things are getting thrown around the last couple of days, and a lot of other media sources have been saying it was just player only. It was film sessions. It was regular meetings. It was team meetings. Nobody knows. Now let's break it down. If it was a player only meeting, again, you maybe kind of touched on it after the game. You have one of those a year, maybe, as a team, where it's just both sides of the ball in there, players only, hashing out whatever they want to hash out. Again, I'm against those. Always was as a player. Couldn't stand them. Went to them, yes, but nothing good comes out of it. And only bad teams have those kind of meetings usually. You didn't see Tom Brady ever having those kind of meetings. He dealt with it on his own, in his own way. You didn't have a players only meeting for guys to because everybody has their opinion. It's no different than when we read the chat room, right? About you, Grease. Everybody has their opinion about you, right?
I already got called a stooge. We're like a minute into the show, 3 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody has their opinion, and that's why, the team leaders, whomever they are, have to take it over and lead by example and lead on the field and in the classroom, not calling guys out at the podium. You just don't do that. You just don't, especially the game that he had. 2 of the interceptions weren't his fault, theoretically, but he missed some throws. You better make sure when you call out a teammate in the media, you better be on your game now. You better be flawless. And the last time I checked, there's never been a player that's played this game that's flawless coming out of a game, ever. I mean, you've been close, but you better be super flawless. And those flawless guys are not calling out their teammates because they need those other 10 guys to protect them and get them to where they want to go, no matter what position it is, But like, again, I'm going to go back to those player film meetings that you're talking about missing. To me, that's up to the player. The coaches give you an iPad. Every day it gets loaded up with new information for what you're going over that day. All the games are on there for your opponent. It's broken down. Like for D-line, it's broken down to run game by formation and personnel. So you have all that at your disposal. It's up to you to decide when you're going to watch that, right? Some guys like to watch in a group. I didn't. So Tua would have called me out on the podium because I would have never gone to a group film session. I did it at 5 o'clock in the morning after I got done working out. That's when I watched it. I've asked guys after meetings to see if they wanted to come and learn football with me, the younger guys, when I was an older player. to come and sit with me, and I'll teach you what I see and how I break the game down, how much slower it comes in my, how the game can come slower after more film you watch and you speed up your play. No one would show up. I didn't call him out. It's to each his own. Just make sure on Sunday you better know what you're doing, or we'll have a little ash chewing session on the field during the game. That's when I did it, so no one could hear it. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. Again, it's only up to that player how he gets his information. You can't force somebody to do something, because then they're not going to do it. Then they're just going to sit in that room and stare at the wall, and it's not going to soak in. So for him to say that, he better make sure he's on the right thing and he got the right people in the room with him.
That's Jeff Scanina, Column Z, and Kyle Krabs right there. And Z, I want to stick with you for one more thing real quick. But today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. But I can see what Tua was trying to do from a leadership standpoint. And maybe guys should be called out if they're not paying attention and they're not playing well and they're not paying attention to any leadership. But I guess what I'm wondering here is, you see Gronk and Julian Edelman and guys like that on podcasts now saying, hey, we were in awe of Tom Brady. We were afraid to piss him off. Like we did. Like that's and obviously that's the GOAT. That's Brady. That's Montana. That's Elway. That's Marino. You played with some leaders like that, though, Z. And you played for some coaches who are tremendous leaders as well. So I'm just going to ask you point blank, man, is there any real leadership at the top for this football team right now?
I don't know that. It doesn't from afar, it doesn't seem like it.
I know you're not in there anymore, but from what you can see, like what we can see from here.
Not right now. I think they're still searching for that leader, the guy that's going to step up and crack the whip by his play and by what he says. Like, again, not every leader has to be vocal. I'll take, for example, Isaac Bruce, when I was in St. Louis with him. And I say that because I just talked to him yesterday.
What a great player.
But he never said a word. He led by example. But when Isaac spoke, whoa, something must be wrong. Same with, your guy, Andre Johnson. When I was in Houston with him, he never really said a word. He was kind of like Isaac, quiet. But when Andre spoke now, it's like, you better sit up in your chair a little bit and listen, because he had something to say, because something was bothering him. So you have guys like that. You have guys just taking pot shots at guys to say, I'm a leader and I'm going to say this, I'm going to go out and say that. You better lead by example.
And Kyle, you've been doing this for a long time here on the channel, and you've been a lifelong Dolphins fan. I'm just going to take you back to 2023. They had a 70-point game against Denver. They had that win now mindset. So many of those veteran players are gone, but what's the difference with Mike and Tua now, and how has it gotten to this point, man? Like, it's 2 years.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that relationship has changed pretty dramatically from the public eye inside of things with how close they were. And Mike was brought in with the intention in large part to maximize who Tua Tagovailoa could be. And I think you go back to the contract extension that Tua got last year. And then Tua obviously goes down with what was an avoidable injury with the head injury against Buffalo early in the year last year. And then you reflect on what both Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel had to say about Tua at the end of the season when they finish 8-9 and they have an outside chance to make the playoffs in week 18, but they need help. And then the team effectively folds up shop at halftime. It wasn't just Tyreek as far as what it felt like the effort was. Tyreek was just the only guy to tap himself on the helmet and take himself out of the game for the second half. They talked about Tua and the weight of him doing the right things and protecting himself and the importance of being available for his teammates. And I think all of that is certainly true, but it certainly felt like, the tug of war at the end of the year where Tua wanted to play and he kept saying he was going to play. And then they didn't play him against the Browns in week 17 and they didn't play against the Jets. And he said, if we make the playoffs, I'm definitely playing against in the playoff game. If we make the playoffs, despite needing to win the game on Sunday to go in to make the playoffs, that whole experience certainly felt like it changed some things for me. And for the guys at the top of the organization, I don't know that I blame him, because we vouched for and put a lot of faith in you, and you in needing to stay healthy and prove that you could stay healthy, played all 17 games by playing responsibly within the pocket and mitigating hits. And you earned our trust to give you a contract extension. And you didn't even make it 7 quarters into the season. And you got yourself KO'd trying to run somebody over in the third quarter of a week 2 game. And now everybody's on the hot seat because you missed the playoffs. Like if the Dolphins went 10-7 last year and Tua didn't go on IR because he didn't try to run over Damar Hamlin. And I know ifs. It's not a fun world to live in. But what would the perception of the Dolphins be if they made the playoffs last year? If they won 10 games last year because they didn't lose to the Colts last year in a game that you were on your third string quarterback, or you didn't lose to the Titans on Monday Night Football. Those are 2 bad football teams last year. And you should have won both games. But Tyler Huntley was starting a quarterback in primetime, and he'd been with the team for 2 weeks. The Seattle game was a winnable game in week 3. So if you just look at what is the offseason narratives, what is the offseason perception, I can't help but feel like and reflect on how that relationship in the public eye and the messaging to one another really felt like it changed after the contract was given. And then Tua ended up getting hurt by doing the very thing that he proved he was capable of not doing the entire year prior before he signed his contract.
And Z, I'll piggyback on that. That's a great point, Kyle, because so many winnable games are being lost. When's the last time the Dolphins won one of these games that, you know what I mean? When you think about it, it's down to the wire, you have a late lead, or you're making a comeback. I mean, they seemingly lose every one of these games, and the good teams win them, right? But I can't help but think, Z, the contrast between the 2 quarterbacks. And here's where I want to go, right? And we'll talk more about Tua a little later in the show. But the feeling about Andrew Herbert in the Chargers locker room after that game. Justin Herbert. Oh my God, I used to work with a guy named Andrew Herbert. I was
going to say, who are you talking about?
Justin Herbert in the locker room after the game, and then Tua Tagovailoa. So I get 53, and some things start jumbling in my head. But the feeling toward the quarterback in each locker room after the game, Herbert and Tua, and what Herbert did at the end of the game, and Harbaugh's on the podium going, I'm going to see this play till they throw dirt over me. You know what I mean? Because he loves his quarterback so much. And then Mike McDaniel saying that was inappropriate. I'm paraphrasing, wrong platform, whatever. Point being, Herbert's got that whole room. He's got that whole franchise, man. He's got everybody backing him. He's the unquestioned leader of that team. And from everything you're seeing and hearing about Tua, it's the exact opposite. And to me, as a guy, just a guy who played as a kid and who's covered the game for 30 years, just to me, I would say that contrast alone, from that position, if you've lost the respect of the people in that room, of the people in the organization, and they don't believe you're going to lead them anywhere. Vasco da Gama, Ferdinand Magellan, they had all these people following them, right? The great leaders always do. Does Tua even have a chance to get this back? I mean, we can talk about whether we should move on later, but does he even have a chance to get this back at this point?
The only way he can get back is his play improves. He stops missing, receivers that are open with overthrows and just methodically moving this offense down the field, keeping them on the field and not, turning the ball over. Because I don't see him as a rah-rah guy. I mean, I don't know him that well. I haven't been around him enough to see him, if he's if that's what he is. But I don't think he is. I don't think he's one that's going to go up and down the sidelines, getting everybody up. I don't see that out of him, and I don't see him going down there and yelling at people like say a Tom Brady would do, or a Peyton Manning, I mean, those are elites. Those are once in a lifetime, dudes, at the quarterback position. So I don't see him doing that. So the only way he's going to get this locker room back and the guys back behind him is just to go out there and do his job.
Kyle, what do you think about all that? You've seen the evolution of this, and you just spoke on it a minute ago, but maybe a little deeper on it. Do you see any way that this thing can be fixed with Tua? And Z makes a good point. You start winning and you start lighting the world on fire, that changes everything. But aside from that, in any kind of a rebuild, there's no chance he's going to be the guy moving forward if it's a full rebuild. Is there? Why would it? Wouldn't make any sense?
Well, I think, of all of the guys at the top of the food chain here with this football operation, I think Tua probably has the best security because he has a fully guaranteed $50+ million salary that's owed to him in 2026. Whereas if you get into this offseason and this season doesn't turn around, you're probably making changes with the football operation. And are you going to pay a guy $50 million to go away? Now, I think if you get into a hiring process, any candidate that's going to be worth a lick of salt is going to want to have the acknowledgement and the freedom that when a quarterback becomes available that we desire to be our guy long-term, we want to have the ability to take him. So I think that kind of sets the stage for I expect Tua to be on the roster next year, no matter what changes are or are not made. But Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer don't have $50-something million salaries fully guaranteed next year. Like it's the math proposition of it. Does that mean that he's going to start? No. I mean, there's been guys that have been lame duck quarterbacks that have not started before in the history of the NFL, and that's part of the risk you take when you get into these supersized contracts. So I think there's a lot of layers to it, and I think that's probably why you see some restraint as far as haphazard changes just because you're unhappy with the first 6 weeks, because there's a lot of layers to this onion that you got to peel off, and you got to be prepared for regardless of whatever decision you ultimately choose to make.
And I would say that the onion and the smell of it and the tears that come when you chop it open, it starts at the top. Stephen Ross is the guy with the money. He's the one writing the checks. Chris Greer's the guy he loves writing the checks to, right? And now you're going to trust Chris Greer to trade assets and bring back picks, and then maybe have him make those picks after his track record these last few. I mean, there's a lot to talk about here. It always starts at the top, though. It always starts at the top, and it runs downhill. This is your Dolphin Squad show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Z, Kyle, Grease. We're here for another 45 minutes. We're going to talk about who should go, who should stay. Should anybody stay? Should it be a complete blow-up? Should Tua be benched? How long will you wait before that happens? I would say that his play has not been bad if you compare him to other quarterbacks for sure, but the leadership is definitely in question. And then the Browns preview, and you lose to the Browns this week and you lose in any kind of fashion to them at all, it's going to be a tough one to overcome for all these guys. All right, when we come back, we're going to hit on who should stay and who should go, and then, of course, a lot more coming your way after Kyle tells you about FanDuel right here on Dolphins Squad Show.
The NFL season is here. FanDuel has an offer that you are not going to want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Put a bet down, put $5 on it, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. What I love about FanDuel is no matter how you choose to play, whether that's spreads, team totals, player parlays, or player props, live lines during the game, you name it, they have it. It makes watching football even more exciting when you have a little something in on the action for yourself. So whether you're a casual fan or love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes your game day experience so much better. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.
All right. Nice job, Kyle.
Put me in the middle.
Yeah, there we go. I don't know how to stop.
Everybody shuffle around.
What's that chair? Musical chairs, right? Like music
Mhm.
stops and everybody, but nobody ever pulls a chair out. So all three of us still end up here. But man, I swear it's crazy. Dolphin Squad show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Z, this is nuts, man. I don't know how players deal with this. And you made a point earlier when we were talking before we started the show that it isn't like fans are going up to players in the grocery store yelling and screaming at them like they do on social media, the keyboard warriors. But, you know, it's so debilitating when you lose in the NFL. It's so every game means so much. The NBA, Major League Baseball, none of that can compare until the playoffs, right? It's a short season, even with the 17 games. When you're losing a bunch of games in a row, it's panic mode. It's full on. Everyone should die. Get them all out of here. You know, some fans. So the intensity is incredible. And I keep coming back to a comment that you made in one of the first shows we did, maybe the first show, when you said everybody's job is day to day in this league unless you're the owner. And that's been the case unless your name's been Chris Greer. You know what I mean? But I don't mean to even laugh. It's just it's gone from a team that was built to win now, 2022, started bringing in guys like Tyreek, 2023, big season. Everybody's going, hey, this team's loaded for the future. So many big-time veterans on that team. But the cost of that win now mindset of 2023 cost them draft picks. Then they had tampering issues. There have been a bunch of things that have contributed to what we see on the field here. But when you look back at the drafts from the past few years and you think about what this team has gotten and pulled in, the only one I can point to and say, hey, here's a star in the making is Achane. Who else have they gotten in these past few drafts? Maybe Kyle can speak more to that. But point being here, Z, when you say everybody's job is up in the air day to day in the NFL, it doesn't seem to me with guaranteed contracts and things like that with Tua that's the case. So to Kyle's point, it's hard just to move on from him. You don't want to pay a backup $50 million, but at what point do you maybe say, hey, you know, who do we look at here? We have to make some sort of a change. someone's head has to roll. It's just the nature of the beast. Or do you wait until the end of this season and start over?
That's up to the owner. Again, you start getting rid of people.
What if you're Stephen Ross? What if it's your checkbook?
Okay. You get rid of the GM. Who's taking over? Do you have somebody in line to take over that you feel comfortable to get you through the rest of the season? Because there's still a bunch of transactions coming up because of injuries. So you better have your scouts lined up or whomever to get this all dialed up to let go somebody like that in the middle of the season. Same as the head coach. You get rid of the head coach. Who's your next guy up? You know, I mean, Tennessee let the guy go this week, and they had a guy in the building who's been a head coach. So it was kind of somewhat of an easier transition there. Again, I don't think anybody on our coaching roster has been a head coach. You know, John Embry's been a college head coach. I know that at Colorado, the tight ends coach, right? So maybe him, but I don't know. I mean, as an owner, you got to be secure in those two spots of who you're putting in there to get you through the season.
Well, we know, Kyle, that there has to be no way this full group is coming back next year. They might all be gone except Tua. We don't know. And Mike McDaniel will be an offensive coordinator somewhere, and he'll do great because that's Mike McDaniel. He'd probably be the happiest guy in the world if he got fired right now. I used to work with a guy, shout out Jeff DeForest, my man Deef. He'd say, my dream is to sign a 5-year contract for $1 million a year and get fired on my third day. You know what I mean? Like, that's Mike would probably be the happiest guy in the world if that happened right now and just take that cash and go. But to Z's point, you can't fire a GM in the middle of the season, right? It's almost impossible to do that. Even with a coach like Mike right now, I mean, who's going to do better? So when I look at this scenario, it's almost like you have to get rid of everybody at the end of the season and just blow the whole thing up. But in the middle of the season, it would be detrimental, right, to do it. You have to at least try to keep the continuity for the season and then go from there, right?
Yeah, I think the argument is you want to give the season a fair chance to play itself out, so you have as much information as possible, just make as educated of a decision as you can as possible. But I do think they have candidates on both ends of this spectrum that we're talking about. I think Darrell Bevell's twice been an interim head coach before. He was the interim head coach in Detroit in 2020, and then the following year, the Urban Meyer year in Jacksonville, he was the interim head coach there when Meyer failed to finish out the season. So
what a disaster that was.
Yeah, you would talk about disasters. That Urban Meyer group. I'm glad we weren't doing a squad show on Locked On Jaguars with Urban Meyer as the head coach of that football team. Although this Dolphins team lost to that football team that year overseas. Let's not forget that. So
man,
a little salt in the wound for Dolphins fans. Everybody tuned in. But you do have somebody with 2 separate stints of interim head coach experience. And then I think they're interesting. Their front office structure, Marvin Allen's been here a while, and he was with most recently before Miami as the assistant general manager. He was in Kansas City and Buffalo, and he was a part of both of the decisions to draft Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen for those respective franchises. He was on the staff for both of those front offices. So he's been here a while. He is the assistant GM. And because he has several years of sweat equity within the organization, I do think you could make an argument that, hey, he's just going to pick up the ball as the assistant GM and finish the season if that was the move that they choose to make. But the other name here is they made a hire as a senior personnel executive in the spring that everybody was kind of interested about. And his name's Champ Kelly, and he was most recently with the Raiders. And then before that, he was with the Chicago Bears. And he served as the assistant general manager for the Raiders. And then Dave Ziegler got fired. And he, starting on November 1st of 2022, I believe was the year that this happened, he finished the back half of the season as a general manager. So, and then he went back to being the assistant general manager. They bring in Tom Telesco, and then they blow the whole organization up, and he leaves, mutually agrees to part ways with the Raiders. And he joins Miami's front office this spring as a senior personnel executive. And he's not he's new. He's been with the team since the spring. Now, he's not several years in the organization like Marvin Allen is, but he's the guy that has experience as an interim general manager basis. So I do think they have options if they want to go that route. And then especially on the offensive side of the ball with the coaching perspective, they bring in Bobby Slowick. Nobody really knows what Bobby Slowick's exact role is because nobody changed titles. It was just, we're just going to add Bobby Slowick to the mix on our coaching staff in that regard. He's a former offensive coordinator. Frank Smith is an offensive coordinator. Darrell Bevel's been an offensive coordinator in Seattle for that entire really successful run that they had with Russell Wilson. So, like, you can play the jigsaw puzzle game if you wanted to and have guys that have filled these seats and these roles, particularly on an interim basis. So I think that's what, like, I wouldn't dismiss anything, but I do think the most likely thing to happen is we're going to bide our time here. They have a late bye week this year after they go overseas to Washington, and I think that's week 11's the game. That's kind of my gut feeling on how this is going to play out. But if you go up to Cleveland and they drop 250 rushing yards on you again, I don't know how you come back and somebody doesn't facilitate a change somewhere if that happens.
That's a great point, and that's the best info you're going to get as a Dolphin fan right there from Kyle Krabs of Locked On Dolphins. Everybody agrees on that in the chat, Z, but it's crazy to me when I think about how far and how fast this franchise is falling. It's in a free fall, and they're close games. This is the thing that kills me. They're not getting blown out. They're taking late leads. The offense, and I said it, and I got killed, and Kyle made a short out of it. It was great. Like, he took the one thing that everybody was killing.
No, don't put it on me. It was the Locked On social team clipped that one. I didn't clip it.
The Locked On team.
I'll throw them in the bus. Don't blame me for
it. Hey, quit pointing fingers. Here we go. Now you got it over the top.
I'm sorry. Kyle,
he did it at the podium. What do you want me to do? He called me out at the podium.
No, it was crazy. I appreciate it. No, and I didn't know that. I had no idea. So thank you for setting me straight on that. I didn't even know that they were the ones doing that. I have to take that up with them. And I don't care because it still was a great point. The offense won the game. Defense lost it. You put any defense in the league, any other defense in the league on the field with 46 seconds left and a lead that you just took. Now, I know Dicker the kicker. I'm sorry. I'm going to laugh like a 5-year-old. Dicker the kicker. He wins the game. He'll hit a 60-year-old to win the game, 60-yarder to win the game. The kid can really kick the ball. But my point is, almost any other defense in the history of the league, 46 seconds left in a game, they're going to hold that lead. It's ridiculous to give that up. So that was my point there. When the offense gives you a late lead the way they have, and then the defense blows it, and everybody's just picking on the offense, and Z, you have a lot of accountability. And to Kyle's point, yeah, it starts at the top, and there should be a change if Cleveland rolls over them this week. But it's almost unfair to point the finger at Tua and the offense when they have taken the lead late in the last two games, and the defense has not only given it back, but they just rolled over and played dead to give it back.
Well, yeah, I mean, we touched on it after the game. I mean, that was demoralizing as a defense to have that happen. I've been in those situations. Offense takes a score late in the game with a few seconds left, and somehow they go down and kick a field goal. Yeah, my second Super Bowl, started the freaking Patriot roll, right? We scored. We had some time on the clock. It's tied up. Go to overtime. No, they go down and kick a long field goal by Vinatieri, and it starts that dynasty. So I've been there. I've been on that field like that, and it's demoralizing, So we got to see what happens this week with our guys, because we keep losing these close games at the end of stupid mistakes. We got to be attention to detail, go out and do our assignment to the fullest, and hustle and run to the ball, and then good things are going to happen.
Good things always happen when John Gruden's around. I'm just going to say, someone mentioned it in the chat, and it took me 28 minutes and 37 seconds. I'm amazed it took me that long. It should have taken me 2 minutes to say John Gruden's name. And I know he's got the issues, and I would love to see someone really stick it to Roger Goodell. I'm going to go on record and say that I want to see Roger Goodell get stuck, fired, run out of the league. I would love nothing more than to see him gone, obviously. And if you know me, you would understand that line of thinking. I think that there's never been a more phony man in the history of sports than Roger Goodell. But anyway, the John Gruden, Roger Goodell thing, it would bring attention. It would be a lightning rod. If you watch Gruden break things down with quarterbacks, if you look at his track record over the years, developing Brett Favre, for crying out loud, in Green Bay under Mike Holmgren and Andy Reid there with him, that coaching tree has been tremendous, guys. And I just think as we hit the break, and we'll save this for the other side because we're at 29.5 and the break's at 30, but we'll pick this up on the other side. Chucky on South Beach, let's go. Come on. And I'm not saying he's going to save Tua. I'm saying Tua would have to go because I don't think John Gruden would want Tua. But let's talk about that on the other side. And I don't know if Z ever played for Gruden or any of the Holmgren coaching.
I did.
Yeah, we're going to find that out on the other side too. It's Dolphin Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Going to let you know about a little something from Peloton, and then we'll be right back.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
All right, guys, right here live on YouTube. After we're done here, we upload, you download Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Stitcher, Podbean, and of course, you download OPP. No, it's OTT. It's Roku, and it's free there as well. That's Kyle Krabs in the middle, Jeff Z. Scanina on the right. I'm Jim Greasehaber. Call me Grease, and we are talking about the Dolphins, obviously, and what they should do with their head coaching situation, the GM, Chris Greer, quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Everything has blown up on this team, obviously. Some close losses lately, blowing leads late in games. When the offense took the lead, defense gave it up. When the offense has had chance to win games, they haven't done it. You know, in a couple of other situations this year, and in a game like the Patriots, you run back a kick, and then you give up a run back on the very next kick. And then you don't fix it because then you let the Chargers run a kick back to the 40-yard line. And that was a big factor in them losing that game as well. All these things to me, Z, football's a game of discipline, and I see people saying things all the time. How are you going to get a bunch of multimillionaires to do this and do that? And it might be, you know, these young multimillionaires, these participation trophy Gen Zers are in the NFL now, and it is a little tougher. And you see it league-wide. There's no real consistency anymore, even with the great teams, because maybe these kids had too much growing up, and they've been entitled from day one, and they're getting guaranteed money and things like that. But when you have a coach who's able to get people to buy into a system, creates a system. There's no system here, man. You have to have a system. They called it the Patriot way, and people go, oh, they're cheaters. And they did cheat, obviously. But when you think of the Don Shula way and his system and the way that he ran things and the way the organization was put together under Don Shula, to use a local example, to use the Dolphins example, you need a coach who can create that system and that culture. Everyone who's ever played for John Gruden loves John Gruden, first of all. Everyone who's been into John Gruden's systems buys into John Gruden's systems. And even if it's not John Gruden, you need a coach with a system that players are going to buy into. And if players don't buy into a coach's system, you have no chance of winning. No chance whatsoever. So I'm going to ask you, man, do you like the idea of bringing in Chucky or a guy like him? And first, who is the Holmgren coaching tree guy for you?
No, it was Gruden.
You played for Gruden.
Yeah, it's first time in Oakland.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
right before he left and the Gruden, right before the Gruden Bowl when Tampa Bay beat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was only there a week during the season, thank God. 'Cause I couldn't stand Oakland.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you couldn't stand Gruden. I was waiting
No.
What do you think of Gruden? What do you think of him as the next guy here?
If it fits, I mean, it comes down to, like, it's more than just one guy. It's who he builds on his staff. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he had his issues in Vegas there towards the end. It wasn't like they were lighting it up too well, you know, on offense and defense. You know, they're still working through the process. Yeah, he had a 10-year contract, which helps, you know, to, like, get his guys in there, but he still has to get his guys into place. You got to remember, that Tampa team he got, they were stacked.
Yeah, they were.
Defensively. There's 3 or 4 guys in the hall off that defense
And
already.
they have Monty Kiffin calling the defense too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not like,
Hall
you
of
know,
Famer.
it's not just yes, the head coach has a message and can lead men. I get that, but the coordinators are the big hires. That's who has to get the ball rolling, you know. And then you have to have a GM who's in sync with you to get you the players you want, and not to go out and think that it's the GM built the team. It's got to be a unit. It's got to be 2 collective dudes up top picking the right guys for that system you're talking about.
Yeah, he had Mayock with him in Vegas, but he had final say. Gruden did.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of head,
but he had final say on all decisions.
Yeah, it's like Sean Payton in Denver. I believe he has final say over the GM. George Payton, who was a Dolphin at one time.
Is it good to have a coach with final say, Z, as opposed to a GM like Greer, and then Mike just has the input, or is it better to have one guy and the guy who's got to coach the players have that final say?
As a head coach, you want that final say.
Yeah,
I mean, you want final say of your roster, hands down, because if the GM's got it and you're on different levels or you're not seeing eye to eye, he picks the players, and now you're stuck with them. Now your job is on the line. If my job's on the line, I won't be able to pick my players. As an assistant coach, you have some say in it, but at the end of the day, you don't have final say. So you can be coaching a dude you don't want, but GM wants him, head coach wants him, or the coordinator wants him. So you got to make it work. So as a head coach, you got to make it work if you're not the final say guy. And sometimes it goes astray, and sometimes it works great.
Kyle, I know you've been chomping at the bit. You've had a lot of patience on this. I know you have a hot take on John Gruden, but if not John Gruden, maybe you could say who. But what are your thoughts on John Gruden coming down here and creating a culture and putting a system in place that has been missing for a long time with this franchise?
Yeah, I think the suit stuff with the NFL probably makes that very muddy. I know he's been eager to get back into coaching. I know he's kind of teased some potential college ranks. I know he spoke at Arkansas and talked about coaching the SEC and how much the thought of that fired him up and whatnot. But I do think the larger point with one of the things that I find appealing with Gruden, and you have some other options for guys that would fit this mold. The last time the Dolphins hired a head coach who had been a head coach before has been a really long time. It was Saban, but at the college level, and that was a totally different animal as far as talking to 18, 19-year-old kids versus working at the professional ranks in 05, 06 when he came in. And then it was Dave Wannstedt had a stint in Chicago as the head coach. That's a lot of coaching hires to go back to the same well again and again and again and again and again with a guy who's never sat in the captain's chair before. And when we're talking about bringing in a vision and bringing in a system and a program and knowing what you're looking for, I do think that's something that I would hope they have a little bit more interest instead of the next hot name hire, right? Like hiring Joe Philbin, who wasn't the play caller in Green Bay, to replicate what Green Bay had with Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers. Like he on the pecking order of who's responsible for Green Bay being really good offensively. How high up on that list was Joe Philbin? Adam Gase gets hired because he gets a vote of confidence from Peyton Manning. And like, is there an easier job in football than late stage career Peyton Manning being his offensive coordinator? Peyton's the coach on the field. He called plays under center if he wants to the entire time, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where when you're having conversations about doing things differently than what is being done now, I think you can achieve it with a coach that has experience and knows what they're looking for and can be that stabilizing hand and kind of to invoke the phrase, the devil you know versus the devil you don't. You never know what you're going to get with a first-time head coach versus a guy who's got a track record, and if the track record is good. And if you want to go with another young hire, then I think you have to look at that executive position, that GM position, and that has to carry a lot of extra weight for you as far as who they are, what their pillars are, what their philosophy is, and you then lean into the executive makes the decision, and we want somebody that has a good working relationship with him to be the arm on the day-to-day with the football stuff.
And then you, as a lifelong Dolphin fan, as someone who bleeds the colors, Kyle, I know you're going to want that hire to be someone, obviously with that personality that comes in and creates the culture. So we'll pick that up on the other side. There's so much more to come with this. But I think that when I think about what Mike McDaniel has done here and the players they brought in and the offense, there's a lot of positives to what he's done here. There's a lot of positives. And when you look at the coaches who came before him, right, there wasn't necessarily that. The best year, 2023, was their best year since the Marino days, right? It's gone rapidly downhill since then. But the Dolphins are a premier franchise in the NFL. The Dolphins are in Miami, right? And it may work against them sometimes with everything to do, and it's hard to keep the players home. It's easy for the players to get in trouble, that sort of thing. But it's a destination city. You get the right coach, the right GM in here, you create any kind of culture, Z. You've been in those locker rooms. Guys love to come and play in a city like Miami. It wouldn't take long to turn this thing around if you start going in the right direction again, because they're a premier franchise in a premier, maybe the premier American city right now in Miami. And so the weather, the things to do, it's not hard to get guys here, man. You could turn this thing around pretty fast.
No, without a doubt. I mean, I came there. I mean, I left St. Louis to come to the Dolphins, because, yeah, it's a great place to live, a great place to raise a family. I get it. There's a lot of flash down there in South Beach, but everything else around it was awesome, and I loved it. You can get anybody to come down there as long as you have a good product, on Sunday.
Yeah, and a proud organization, Kyle. I mean, the NFL is better when the Dolphins are better, right? And there are a lot of teams like that. The Cowboys are terrible, obviously, right now. And you look at the Steelers have been consistent under Mike Tomlin. But would you rather have a track record of consistency like that, where you're consistently making the playoffs and consistently not winning in the playoffs? I mean, do you want to be a consistently above average and make the playoffs almost every year and never be a real threat to win anything? Or do you want to be a team that can have that run, win it all, get decimated by the cap, and go back to the bottom? It seems like that's today's NFL, Kyle. It doesn't seem like you can really build a consistent, super top-level team. Even the Patriots had that big lull. People forget the lull for Tom Brady was huge between championships and Belichick.
Yeah, but, the lull is still 10-plus wins, right? And the lull is there's a standard. And I alluded to this in the post game this week after this most recent loss to the Chargers. But I've been doing my background work on different programs across the league and who's running them and what their core philosophies are. And one of the ones that stood out to me was how John Schneider in Seattle talked about his goal as the general manager is to build through the draft while making strategic acquisitions to foster a sustained championship caliber atmosphere. It's like very deliberate wording, how he phrased it. And he does a sit down interview and talks about it. And it's, the variance year to year with injuries, and it's not a round shaped ball. So it takes funny bounces and there's bad breaks that can happen for you along the way. It's very unpredictable, but a sustained championship caliber atmosphere and invoking those words and thinking about what Seattle was with they had all their early 2010 success through the draft. They hit on Russell Wilson in the mid rounds. They catch lightning in a bottle. They win a Super Bowl. They go to another one. They kind of have a downturn off of that. And then they've made these transitions afterwards. And they've been a team. They missed the playoffs last year with the first year of Mike McDaniel, and they still won 10 games. Like if that's your standard for bad, I think that's what the Don Shula standard was in Miami. The bad years were the winning. How many losing seasons in 27 years as the Dolphins head coach? 2?
Yeah.
Like I think that standard should be what we aspire to be. And it's up to you to make the right decisions and catch lightning in a bottle to go on the runs as compared. I would much rather do that than have the roller coaster every 3 years, because then there's that temptation and there's that call to make changes and to fire the head coach and to fire the GM. And this guy blew his window and blew his rebuild, right? When in reality, the Dolphins had a pretty standard amount of time to build a roster and try to compete in a 6-7 year window from when they decided they were going to do this in 2019. They just wasted the first half of it not being on the same page with the coach and the general manager, the quarterback. So then they make a head coaching change midway through it. And the coach they bring in is a guy who's never been a head coach before. So you feel like there's some growing pains through what is the optimized years of the roster to compete. And now you're on the downturn of it. And now your head coach is 3 years in and everybody says, well, look, now the roster's falling apart. No, that's a life cycle for most teams, but some teams have Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady to ride through it. And then they win 10 games when they go through their transitions. And Baltimore did that recently with Lamar Jackson. So I would much rather have a stability element and try to push the right buttons to have the breakthrough. And that's what I hope the continued objective is. And I know, because this kind of stuff's been talked about, that was what was promised to Stephen Ross when they started this build. Grease, a number of times you talked about the win now mentality in 22 and 23 and all the draft picks and sending away for players. they lost the plot. They saw a few shiny objects and sent a bunch of draft picks out for a couple of guys like Bradley Chubb at the trade deadline and Tyreek Hill. And then they get hit with the tampering charges. And this is how you end up in these shoes. And this was not what the stated goal of the build was when they started it. Is they wanted an annual contender. And I think that's where I take the most exception. I'm fine with having a season like this if it's what your standard expectation is, that you're going to have these life cycles. But this is what was promised when they started this process in the first place.
If only Nick Saban would have stayed. Just kidding, Z. I worked on his radio show. It was fun. Oh, man, Nick Saban in Miami. But anyway, it seems like you would take it at this point and just throw him out there. But, man, this is your Dolphin Squad show. It's Grease. It's Z. It's Kyle. We got one more segment to go. I want to get Z's thoughts on what Kyle just said before we turn the conversation to Tua again and see about, the Tomlin Steelers, the Harbaugh Ravens, and when's the last time either one of those guys won a Super Bowl? So I'll just throw that out there, but we'll keep that up on the other side. Obviously, keep it going in the chat with the comments, and we will wrap up this show right here. It's Dolphin Squad Show on the Locked On Podcast Network, and we are rolling on your Wednesday edition. And I get a chance to talk to you about our friends at Game Time. What time is it? It is game time, and everybody loves getting action on the action, but what's better than seeing the action straight up in person? What is better than being there in the stadium? The NFL's back. There's nothing better being in there surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle and a big one, right? And when I was a kid, forget it. You had to get them in the mail. Don't lose them. Don't spill anything on them. Or you're waiting in line at will call. It was a real chore to get tickets back in the day. And I'm feeling spoiled right now by Game Time. You don't even want to deal with queues, login screens, prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's the new version of frustrating. But I use Game Time and I don't have to deal with any of it. I'm spoiled, right? The app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets. And that's important. Delivered on time at the best price. Plus, all the fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay. Couple taps, amazing deals, favorite NFL games, lower prices. And it is super, super simple. I can see the exact view, panoramic from the seat before I buy the ticket. That's awesome in and of itself. You're going to see exactly what you're going to see when you get there. It's faster, cheaper, less stressful than any other way I bought tickets, and makes it super easy to be a fan. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL, and that's how you're going to get it done. $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL, Locked On NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. There we go. Oh, there's Kyle back on the right again. See that? It just looks better with Z in the middle, doesn't it? Z in the middle. The symmetry is better.
Yeah.
Oh, man. But Z, I want to ask you about what Kyle said, having that consistency, right? Year in, year out, the Tomlin Steelers, the Harbaugh Ravens, and they haven't won Super Bowls in a long time, right? And look at the Ravens. Harbaugh, Ray Lewis is long, long gone, right? But they're good every year, and they get into the playoffs every year, and they have a chance every year, which is good because it keeps the season tickets selling. It keeps the merchandise selling. It keeps the Steeler Nation or the Ravens Nation or whatever engaged all year long. And all year long, they build up to it. And at the end of the year, they're going, Lamar's never going to win a Super Bowl. So you get that no matter what in the NFL. It's just a matter of when you get it. But if you're getting it by week 3, you're in deep doo-doo. Week 4, week 5, right, as opposed to playoff time. So what are your thoughts on what Kyle said about that consistency, and then you get that chance every 3 to 4 years to catch that lightning in a bottle?
Well, it's what you want. I mean, if you're consistent, you have a foundation already. Right now, the foundation in Miami is very shaky at best. You know what I'm saying? So you keep going through the cycle of got to bring a new guy in, and he's got to bring all his players in to fit his system. But if you just ride the wave of a consistent, wins and get into the playoffs, and every once in a while make your run, because again, if you look at that defense at Pittsburgh, it's the same that Cowher had, pretty much so. I mean, they do the same thing. So they've been drafting and picking up players to fit that defensive system for 20 some years now, 30 years, right? So it makes it easier. All the guys, all the scouts are the same. They change GMs because of retirements, but it's always the same thing year in and year out. So you know what is expected. There's no changes. There's no like, oh, here we go again. I got to get all new signage up on the walls in the building. I got to get, redo my draft board. I got to redo this, redo that. I got to find this player. And, you'll have a spike the first year because it's new. And then usually it drops down. And then it keeps dropping until they get all their players in. And by that time, the owner doesn't have enough patience and he's going to move on. So, like Tomlin's been there forever because he just like took over. They had Dick LeBeau there, with Tomlin in the beginning. And it was running the same defense that Bill had when I was there, and it just, they tweaked it. Yes, it's always changing, but it's the same principles, the same players, and that's what they look for. And it makes it easier. So, yeah, I would love to, be steady quo. And then every once in a while you hit on a few players here and there and you get the breaks in the playoffs and you make a run and you get to the game.
And you see it all the time, Kyle, in the NFL now, where teams go for that win now mindset that the Dolphins did, burn themselves with picks, burn themselves with the cap, and they know they have to win within a 2 or 3 year window or it's toast. But then the average career is 3 years. So I can see it from both sides. As an organization, you want the stability. The fan base wants the stability. I think years go by and you just appreciate a guy like Don Shula more and more, and it's a bygone era anyway on top of that. But when I think about the stability, you have to hit on your draft picks. It's the players who win games. We've talked so much about the coach. It comes down to the players. So we have it up there. Bench Tua. Obviously, you're not going to bench Tua now. He's been playing pretty well. The 3 interceptions last week, we talked about that. One went right through Waddle's hands. One was the last play of the game for the offense after they took the lead with 46 seconds left. So he did win those games late. He did give them the lead late, put them in a position to win those games late. So benching him now might turn this into an atrocity where they're losing by 20 or 30 points. And then who are you going to put out there? Are you just going to go right to Quinn Ewers and say, let's see if this kid can play? There's so many things that you start to throw out there when a team's losing like this. But obviously they're not going to bench Tua right now. But if they have a bad outing in Cleveland against a terrible Browns team, right? And thank God everybody's talking about Shedeur because it takes a little of the heat off the Dolphins. But if they have a bad outing against this Browns team, do you start to think about getting a lot more of the young guys on the field and maybe, bringing in another quarterback and seeing where that goes? It seems almost crazy to even mention that, but you have to do something to spark this team especially something bad happens this week in Cleveland.
Well, I think the challenge with that is we've already talked about Tua and his salary situation for next year. So what are you going to bench him in October and then he's here all year next year and you got to deal with it all off season, right? I think there's personnel changes that you can continue to tinker with, and there's guys that you can continue to try to get on the field more and young guys and see what they have. But at quarterback spot, man, it's I don't see it as a push play and magically everything gets better. And the distractions that in turn is going to take, and the decision to do that when again the head coach and the general manager that are still here are part of the process in which this quarterback got a $212 million contract extension. If you bench him less than 2 years, but less than 16 months after he signs the contract extension, are you not just signing your own death warrant as the people in control of the football operation to say, hey, Steve, I hope you got a great short-term memory and a bad long-term memory because I know we did that contract, but we benched that guy. I think you and to your point, Z, they did put together game-winning drives at the end of both of those games. Now, they did not win the games, but Tua was at his best on that 6-minute possession there at the end of the fourth quarter against the Chargers on Sunday. I thought that was when he played his best football. So it just feels like that conversation for me just continues to be bloodlust for the sake of bloodlust and making a change versus I think you have to look above the quarterback if you're going to make any organizational changes, because the guys that are in place at the top of the organization aren't going to be incentives to take the L and punt on that because it's an indictment on them.
That just tells me it'll be Mike, Kyle. You're not going to fire a GM in the middle of the season. You're not going to change the quarterback. That means the head coach. There's only one. Look, you have a bad loss at Cleveland. It's only Mike that's on the thin ice then, based on your logic.
So the other option is Mike gets someone off his staff before someone gets Mike off of their payroll, right? And whether that's the defensive coaching staff and making changes with whether that's Austin Clark is an outstanding positional coach. I got a ton of great respect for him. But once everybody feels the pressure and everybody's in the pressure cooker, the question is like, okay, where do I facilitate a change so that I'm not the one that has the change facilitated on me? And whether that's Anthony Weaver or whether that's Joe Barry or whether that's the defensive backs coach or whether that's Brian Duker or whether that's Austin Clark or the edge guy's already on paid interim lead because of the off the field incident that he had in which he had the police called for an accusation of domestic violence and the criminal charges were dropped on that, but he's still on paid leave. Like, I think if you lose against Cleveland, I don't see how you just remain status quo. And whether that means it's somebody off the staff as an assistant coach, whether that's Mike, whether I do think there is a somewhat decent chance that you could make a decision with Chris Greer because you do have two guys who are an assistant GM and a guy who's been an interim GM before. But I think this is one of those ones where you look at, this is another 1-5 football team starting a third-round rookie quarterback in his third career start. You lose this game, man, I can't help but thinking it's the end of somebody's tenure.
The end of somebody's tenure. And Z, as a defensive player, and they've been right around 30 points a game allowed this year, right? And losing these last two games when the offense gave you the late lead, it's getting worse, 46 seconds this last time. You got to be chomping at the bit right now to get back out on that field because obviously you have a lot of pride as a pro athlete. You can't wait to get back out there and play better, right? And keep improving. But you got to be licking your chops for Dillon Gabriel, and you got to be thinking this is the week we can finally, as a defense, maybe come together and play a real good game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think they're ranked with the bottom for offense, for yards a game, whatever.
Yep.
So you got to be chomping at the bit.
Terrible offense against a terrible defense, like last in the league.
Yeah. So again, it's going to come down because they're like I said earlier, last show, their defense is pretty good now. They got two top 10 pass rushers out there. I mean, they're going to be coming. And Myles Garrett's a special player, right? So as a defense, it's up to us to win the game this week, hands down. We got to stop this guy. He's what, 5'5"? I mean, he's a short little dude back there too. We got we got bat balls down. He hasn't really been in the fire that much. Got to get after him, and raise some havoc and stop the run and put the ball in his hands to beat us because he's not ready to beat teams yet.
Yeah, and Kyle, if you want to see a case study in franchise mismanagement, look at the Browns, right? I mean, they fell in love with Deshaun Watson, which killed them, and they ran Baker Mayfield out of there. And look at Baker's an MVP candidate right now. But it just goes to show you how tenuous it can be in the NFL when you're a bad organization. You don't want to be the Browns. You don't want to be the Cardinals. The Dolphins used to be a bastion. They used to be up here in that hierarchy. But when you look at this matchup, Kyle, where do you see the biggest advantage for Miami heading into this game?
Yeah, I think the Browns have a lot of youth offensively. They got a rookie quarterback. They got a rookie running back. They got a rookie wide receiver. They got a rookie tight end. They got rookies all over the place.
Yep.
And I think specifically with a young quarterback, one thing that I would hope we see from Anthony Weaver's scheme this week, if you win on early downs and force some obvious passing situations, I think this is a week where some of your simulated pressures are going to be in a position to confuse Dillon Gabriel. And where you've now made the jump from Oregon to the pro level and your precision has to be on point and your timing has to be on point. I think this is a favorable matchup for the Dolphins defense if they can force the obvious passing situations. And that's the concern because this Judkins kid at running back, he's a load to bring down and he's got some explosiveness to him. He's looked great for them so far. So that's one element that really stands out to me. And then I think Miami offensively, their ability to, and they haven't done it as much this year. Tua Tagovailoa is tied for 12th in the NFL in average time to throw. The past 2 years before that, he's been number one by overwhelming amounts of margins. So he's holding the ball longer this year. I think their ability to have some quick game stuff and a little bit more willingness to load up and go some heavier personnels with two tight ends on the field, you can kind of create wider surface areas for your edge defenders to have to try to play the edge and can create some extra gaps, and you can create extra distance that the pass rusher has to go to get to the quarterback. I think they have some things structurally that can kind of help them negate the threat of Myles Garrett and those other guys on that front.
Yeah, and with Tua holding the ball a little bit longer and maybe getting a little bit, antsy back there with this offensive line, this, you're one play away always from Tua being knocked out of a game, and then you're going to find out what you have real fast. And then, of course, on the Browns side, you knock Gabriel out of the game, the Shador show comes on the field, and you never know what happens there. You don't want to lose to him in his first game. But, it really is interesting when you think about the futility of the Browns and the Dolphins kind of heading in that direction. It doesn't seem possible that this once great organization could be where it is right now. And you don't know how long it could possibly take to fix this thing, but what a mess they've made, man. What a mess they've made. But in the National Football League, as you guys know, winning cures everything. So before we wrap it up, I just want to get each of your guys' final thoughts on this game against the Browns, and we'll be live right after the game with the reaction show. But we'll start with you, Kyle, and we'll wrap it up with Z. What are your final thoughts heading into this Browns game?
My final thought is very simple. Do not lose. Whether it's a thought, it's advice, whatever you want to make it, don't lose. Do not lose on Sunday to Cleveland.
Z?
I'm the same with Kyle. I mean, you never lose to the Browns. And you go up there and again with this brand new rookie quarterback, if we lose, that's a long plane ride home.
Yeah, it's a long flight home.
Could be a chance for the defense to get better this week and the offense on the edges. My final thought on this game is I think the Dolphins skill players have a big advantage with especially the emergence of Darren Waller, and Waddle's played great as a number one. Achane dual threat. I think they can run it a little bit. They have to because of the pass rush of the Browns. You have to slow it down somehow, and they're not going to slow it down in pass pro. We already know that. They have not done that in 2 years, so that's not going to happen. They're going to have to find ways to slow it down within the scheme. Otherwise, Tua's a dead man, and we're not going to have to worry about whether he gets benched because he'll be on the bench with an injury, and he'll get killed in this game against that Browns rush. I'm really impressed by that Cleveland defensive line, Z, to your point, and we will be live right after the game. These two guys breaking it down. Kyle with Locked On Dolphins podcast day in and day out. And I know you've had a busy week already, Kyle. What else do you have for the fans coming up next couple days?
Yeah, so I got my Wednesday show out early today. So I have crossover Thursday with Locked On Browns tomorrow. And then we will do a roadmap to beat the Browns, where we really dive into a lot of the matchups on Friday from a personnel standpoint. We'll probably do an extra show on some of the trade deadline buzz as we get closer, just because of where Miami is. And there's already been some reports from NFL Network and ESPN folks about some names. And I'm trying to make sure I get them all from a forecasting perspective to try to have some prognosis there before anybody gets traded. And then I miss the content opportunity, and then I only can do a reaction thing off of it. So we'll see if I get a little extra time to get an extra show there too.
All right, best Dolphins content in the business from Kyle Krabs, Jeff Scanina, former Dolphin, Jim Greasehaber, call me Grease. Thank you so much for watching your Dolphin Squad show. We'll see you after the game. Good Lord, do not lose to the Browns, please. Thank you for being here on the Squad show. We'll see you on Sunday.